Hey everybody, we're back with another comic book spoiler review, and I want to get right into this one before I get into like my two movie reviews I'll be covering right after this, because one of them will be fairly short, but I figured this is not long, but it's just like 33 issues, so I cleared them up as like fast as I could, but I got to admit, because I knew eventually I was going to have to cover this, and I was kind of dreading it in a way because when this premise was first brought up many years ago, this came out like 2013. I was like, God, because I had an issue with when it comes to like brain swapping kind of stories. I mean, other than maybe like Freaky Friday, because like sometimes you can do it well, sometimes you know it just doesn't jive right. And there was this Spider-Man adventure years ago where Doc Ock was kind of like in the game where his body is like failing him, he's like getting sick, his mind's still sharp but his body is like dying, and he came up with the idea of swapping minds with Spider-Man, which ultimately he succeeded, and Peter Parker ended up dying technically in Doc Ock's body. And this brought up the uh, run of Superior Spider-Man, where Doc Ock takes over Peter Parker's life. Now, of course, eventually, yes, he did get it back, which we'll get into. But Doc Ock, years later, I forgot how it happened. I know how it happened. There's this like robot, that's a part of this. I forgot what that robot is called. But it was called like this. It's kind of like this gizmo type of robot that looks like something straight up from like old 60s Spider-Man comic. That's where he, originally from. The Brain, I think it's called. Excuse me. The Brain. And Doc Ock is kind of like pulled the Ultron move where he's like, thinking he's going away, but he still has brain, he copied his brain patterns into the brain, which was saved. Then it was transferred to a Peter Parker clone body, which then, now there's, because people love the Superior Spider-Man so much, so editors or whoever run it, like Marvel at that time, decided like, it's a cash cow, we got to bring it back somehow. So yeah, Superior Spider-Man living in the West Coast, while we got normal Spider-Man on the East Coast in New York, and decided like, oh, Doc Ock's on a path of being good now, so we'll leave him to his devices over there, and I'll do my own thing here. Of course, that didn't last long. I kind of wish they because it's just like with Harley Quinn. It's like sometimes you gotta allow certain, because Doc Ock goes through a significant, albeit a little bit faster than Harley Quinn, gone through like a character growth. Same thing with like Loki. And I've been one like a long time ago. I thought about doing like a discussion video on characters that had like a long running history of being bad guys, but then went through a pretty damn good character progression uh to where it usually like gone from like villain to anti-hero to full-blown hero, kind of like Harley Quinn and Loki, being like the big prime examples that I could think of. Then there was like a situation with Doctor Doom where it's like during this run of infamous Iron Man, at some point I want to do like a Doctor Doom's uh centered story. But there's a Doctor Doom story where he fix his face, become like infamous Iron Man, where during the time after Civil War II, and people assume that Iron Man was dead. And these characters don't stay dead forever. And and it's the rise of Riri Williams at the time as well, after she was mentored a little bit with Iron Man. Doom, had like a change of heart, but it just didn't last long. Granted, people want their classic Doctor Doom, so he couldn't stay a hero forever. But I figured, like, if you're going through this arc with these guys, it's like it's like the same thing with like, oh, Harley Quinn, gotta bring her back to bad guy mode, and it's like, certain characters, like, you gotta allow them to, because I think Doc Ock is one of those kind of characters that can benefit from being a good guy now. You keep a bit of his kind of like cocky, arrogant kind of attitude about himself, but now it's put towards something good. And just like you can still keep the same kooky Harley Quinn, but she is still technically a good guy now. So it's like, I kind of wish they stuck to their guns with this and not regress them. And it's just like, I kind of wish they kind of stuck to that. And it's like some characters can't stay bad guys forever. It's like, especially if you get like new bad guys. As much as I hate this freaking character, Punchline, it's like one of those kind of new bad guys recently, even though it's like, I don't think hardly anybody likes Punchline like that. But yeah, then you got like something like Mr. Bloom or Godspeed or Batman Who Laughs and stuff like that. It's like you eventually get new bad guys for the villains to deal with, but sometimes like the old guard, you gotta let them evolve to a certain extent. Excuse me for a second. So I'm going through like the Superior Spider-Man after like the completion of the mind swap. So he gone through two costume changes here. Now Doc Ock has kind of like a suit where it got like the feet area has like this big toe, kind of almost like a ninja in a way. If you seen like the Foot Clan from Ninja Turtles, almost kind of like had like feet like that, whereas like his big toe kind of sticks out. Don't really care for that. And of course his mask always got seems like those kind of like his goggles, the way it's kind of like how kind of like pokes out a little bit more than Peter Parker was. But yeah, you see Doc Ock go through you like his classic Superior Spider-Man costume with the extended kind of spider legs, kind of like Iron Spider-Man, from Civil War and like the movies. But he's out there doing his thing, taking on like the new Beetle, who eventually hooks up with Robbie Robinson's son, down the line in current comics. But then you also got, if you remember my spoiler review on the 90s Spider-Man TV show, there was this guy we introduced with Rocket Racer. There's this guy who's like a thief who's using this giant big wheel thing. And you got this guy here again. It's like, wow, I have not. You get this guy and Boomerang, as well as Alistair Smythe, which I mentioned many times during like certain reviews of Spider-Man related content I've been doing the past a few months now, where it's like I was like, man, it's like you really need to showcase some characters you really don't see much of, because we keep getting bogged down by the same old villains like Doc Ock, Green Goblin. It's like, okay, or even Kingpin. It's like, okay, you rehashing characters that's already popular enough as it is. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you got great writers. Oh, like speaking of which, this is Dan Slott with like artists like Ryan Stegman, and of course the writers change over, here and there, but I dig the art here, and like the writing, dare I say, is superior. And it's like this is my first time going through this adventure in this completion, because when it came out I was so against it, because I love Spider-Man so much. As you guys know, he's like my profile on a lot of my stuff, and it's like, the whole killing him off, it's just like I didn't read like Wolverine being killed off when he was covered in all that adamantium and he died, and he stayed dead for at least a good few years. This is not too long after X-Men Origins Wolverine, and right around that time when that leaked Deadpool test footage that came out, it was around that time, and I did not care. Matter of fact, I was still in college at the time, and I like was so vehemently against this. Like, you killing off a character, you brain swap them and stuff like that. I just did not read this. That's why I was so like, okay, I have to, considering that I'm going through Spider-Verse, I have to include Superior Spider-Man, because he does play a role in that, and I have to put him on the list of different Spider-Man, single issue runs to cover their adventures. So reading through all this, that's like, okay, I get why people like this, but like it still probably wouldn't deter me from like avoiding it, because this is probably the only time I'm actually going to be covering Superior Spider-Man. So hope you all enjoy it. But Doc Ock, while Peter is still the residual memory or essence or soul, or however you want to quantify it, it's still part in the deep recesses of Doc Ock's mind, because I mean, it's never fully explained, but you can infer that his residual memories are still part of him. So that little bit is still in the back of his mind, though for the time being, Doc Ock cannot hear Peter as he's trying to talk with him while he's doing his Spider-Man thing his own way. He's trying to, start a new lease on life and everything like that. So he is trying to stop this new Sinister Six from doing all these heists and everything like that. And of course, most of them are bumbling idiots, aside from maybe like Shocker or the Big Wheel. But of course, like Doc Ock is getting overwhelmed by these guys, because he never done the hero thing before. He's always been on the other side of stuff. But at one point, Boomerang throws a boomerang at him. Of course, he dodges it and everything like that. But it comes back and almost hit like a police officer. Doc Ock just instinctively you can say that it's just like, Peter's kind of like muscle memory, just reacting. So he jumps in and takes the hits for that officer while the crooks eventually get away. But, he slashes kind of like, 2099 Spider-Man's like ability, although that one's more natural. This is mechanical, where he has little claw tips on his fingers, slashes at Boomerang, but thinking he was just trying to cut him, but he's also leaving, instead of like those ordinary spider traces, he got these little nanobots that he uses almost in the same way, but he also can spy on them, with audio frequency. So he's out on a date with MJ, while Peter's just like, in his mind screaming at him like, you gotta be out there patrolling, you gotta do this, but MJ, he's still like, he listened in on his little earpiece about what they're talking about, and MJ is like, listen to it, because he doesn't know. And there's some characters in here we'll be meeting along the way, like Carly Cooper, who used to date Peter Parker. I don't recall who Carly Cooper is at all. It's probably from a Spider-Man comic that I did not read, but apparently they used to date, and when when Peter and MJ was on the outs. But she's a police officer, and you also get Captain Watanabe in here. And of course, you also get Spider Bots, which I imagine that's where like the game got, I think that was, all this time I thought those were original ideas. Turns out the game probably was reading this, or at least the developers was reading a lot of Spider-Man comics, including Superior Spider-Man, which is a lot of people's favorites. So they included things like the Spider Bot and Captain Watanabe to be a part of the game. So I was really shocked by that. So all the times when I mentioned earlier, like, man, I kind of wish they kind of bring back, Captain Watanabe, because she's a great, supporting character for Spider-Man. Here it is. Although this came out in 2013, 2015, whatever. And I haven't seen Watanabe since, because I read, a fair amount of Spider-Man long after this, especially during the age of Parker Industries, which picks up after this, which next year I will get into, along with the Spider-Man event Clone Conspiracy. So that'll be, probably the next Spider-Man related thing I'll probably get into next time, but that'll be probably next year. So MJ is asking him like, what are you doing? And like, oh, I'm listening on the criminals that robbed the bank, earlier today. But don't you need to be out there? It's like don't worry, our guys all well taken care of. I'm just listening to their plans right now, what they're gonna do, whatever like that, and I'm gonna follow their plans. Don't worry about it. And indeed he does. In fact, it's a lot of times, halfway, if not maybe slightly halfway through this 33 issue run, or technically 30, where Doc Ock does perform, I hate to say it, but he does perform certain acts as Spider-Man better than Peter would. Like at one point, he calls the cops ahead of time, so when he's going after this serial killer, not Cletus Cassidy, just some rando created for this particular adventure serial killer to go out and cause some mayhem, but he calls the cops ahead before he intercepts and deals with formula, because considering he used to be a bad guy, he knows how they would think, and so we'll get to it, but he goes to his warehouse like, yeah, like, I know how this plays out. guys like this, he'll probably have some contingency plan. So to try to, force me to choose between saving the hostages there or saving a bunch of people who might get blown up in another spot. So I'm gonna go right now, get them, break them out, and then head to the thing. And so when he tried to do his big reveal, I already neutralized the situation, which it's like, crap, that was pretty smart. Not to say like Peter Parker is stupid or anything like that, but it's just that he's very reactionary more often than not, which tends to be his downfall in certain situations. While Doc Ock is a pretty good planner and strategizer. So he eventually, because there's like Speed Demon, not to be confused with the Amalgam Comic Speed Demon, Flash and Ghost Rider, but this Marvel character Speed Demon who has super speed powers, not to the same degree as like Quicksilver, but pretty fast. And like he set all these traps, like put down some like use a mop to put something covering the floor area to remove the friction, so Speed Demon has nowhere to run effectively. Neutralize like Shocker and Beetle and all those other people very handily. And of course, at this time, J. Jonah Jameson is mayor of New York, and he's actually working with Spider-Man on this. And at this time, Spider-Man is a part of the Avengers. Tell how long at this point in time he was prior to this Avenger, but he has like an actual Avengers ID card and what have you. So it's like, whoa, Peter is stunned the fact that like he living in like a Twilight Zone, that flat top Jonah is actually now pleased with Spider-Man, even though he's been trashing him throughout his Spider-Man career. So now things are seemingly going smoothly for Parker. He's also working in Horizon Labs. Of course, if you watch my review on Miles Morales adventure, as well as, well, more so my recent Spider-Man review of Spider-Man, where 616 Peter Parker meets Ultimate Miles Morales, which, by the way, check out that video as well, youtube.com/targetofcarl. You can check out all my comic book reviews, as well as movie reviews and TV show reviews, as well as video game walkthroughs. But Carly's, and Mary Jane is like, watching on the news and giving like certain different behaviors that seems outside the norm for Peter. Sorry, excuse me. Carly's, being a cop, starting to suspect, because they making this line about like exactly he's like a different person. They say like, and she recalls because she ended up shooting Doc Ock even after he was saying things like, I'm not really Doc Ock, I'm Spider-Man. And of course she didn't believe him. Now she's starting to wonder. And get this, J. Jonah Jameson actually, because he's like, having like a better, it's going to be a couple of times where J. Jonah Jameson has come around on Spider-Man. This and several years later, where eventually Peter comes clean about his identity with Jonah Jameson. Although it wouldn't be the first time. It was like, before One More Day is during, the first Civil War, where he comes out as Peter Parker to people because he supported the Superhuman Registration Act. Of course, even before that, Jonah figured out when. No. That was only 2 times. I'm thinking about, like, I was about to say, like, when Spider-Man first joined the Avengers and everything like that, and he has to, actually like accept Spider-Man as a hero, but he didn't reveal his identity at the time. So yeah, it was during the Civil War, and another situation years later after this, where Jonah is like, now he knows who he is. He full support Spider-Man and everything like that. And of course, that has been like, pretty sure that's been definitely retcon after that. Also, during this time of the Superior Spider-Man, and prior to this, May married J. Jonah Jameson's father. Of course, he passed away during the events of Clone Conspiracy, I believe. Once I get through that event, I'm pretty sure I'll be reminded. I'm pretty sure it's during that time. So Jonah set up a spider signal, which I'm pretty sure a lot of people got a laugh out of. And of course, this should have been Captain Watanabe with the actual Peter Parker, but Doc Ock throws like a spider bot bomb onto the thing, destroying it, saying like, kind of like kind of poking fun at Batman fans in a way, or Batman in general, where the fact that why would you make a big light thing, just signifying to everybody, every criminal in the city, where would I be, kind of situation. That's just stupid. And people have been saying that for a long time with Batman. It's like, I'm pretty sure there's been times where villains actually went to the police GCPD and try to attack it, because that's where like the bat signal is, and try to get the jump on Batman. I'm pretty sure there's safeguards or what have you, but still, it's pretty stupid. Who cares if it's actually a police station? Especially criminals with superpowers like Clayface, or even with like gimmicks like Mr. Freeze, they can easily assault a police station with their superior tech or powers and hoping to get the jump on Batman. That'd be pretty stupid. So although it's like an alliance, it's an easy alliance with Jonah, because he's one of the, have like, he figures he has Spider-Man in his back pocket. But Doc Ock's too smart for that, obviously. So he uses a police facility because he's this criminal massacre, I think is called, broke out, killed a guard and Dr. Ashley Kafka. This woman really doesn't give a break like that, because she, at this point, should be running the Ravencroft Institute, which is like Marvel's version of Arkham Asylum. But every once in a while, there's something happening to her where she is hurt or killed, or nothing happens to her at all. But she should be like got those kind of plot armor like J. Jonah Jameson, where she just one of those good supporting characters that should not happen to her outside of maybe getting wounded or something at the most. But in this story, she is killed. I'm pretty sure she's been retconned. She should be fine now. And now Doc Ock created these spider bots where he has them, it's like hundreds of them, like like maybe into thousands, have them scattered all across the city, so that way he has it linked up to his mask, so that way, and then he has like a kind of like a call line where Jonah or anybody can reach him to alert him where trouble might be, and then we can use one of the spider bots that's close by, so he'll know exactly where he needs to be. So that way, unlike Peter, doesn't have to go, going the long way around just searching willy-nilly and happen upon it. He just knows exactly where he needs to be. So it's pretty efficient, gotta admit. So this is before the massacre, I'm sorry. he's done with Vulture at the time, and Vulture is like, ends up using these little henchmen, turns out to be children, which Doc Ock was furious because Peter is trying to reach in the deep recesses of Doc Ock's mind, trying to reestablish control again, seeing all his images of his childhood, and he got beat by his father as a child, so he has like a thing against anybody abusing children. So he ends up fighting Vulture, and ends up blinding him and sends him crashing into the spider signal. So he's badly beaten and he's blind, and of course it's temporary, because next time Vulture pops up, he's not blind anymore. At the same time, while he's working at Horizon Labs with all these supporting characters, outside the lead one, the guy like a ponytail with his, as one of the characters points out, is kind of like new age kind of scientist, kind of like I'm a hip scientist kind of situation. But they're not here nor there. It's the one that kind of stuck out to me. The one person, this bald black kid who's obviously some kind of prodigy. The only reason he sticks out more so than anybody else there is because his name is Uatu. Why in the world would you give this kid the same name as Uatu the Watcher? That is bonkers to me. I was like, I don't agree with that. I don't hate it. People have the same name all the time, but this is a name off of a specific, not only a specific character of Marvel Comics with a significant history, but it's just such a random name that you thought it was being it's like, unless this kid's actually a Uatu in disguise, watching everything and pretending to be human, then it'll probably be better. But it's just like, it's an odd choice to give this kid. You could have gave him any name, but you want to make him stand out so much, you actually give him, you knew what you was doing. That is too specific of a name. Uatu is not like Gwen Stacy, because like there's a lot of women out there in the world that's actually named Gwen. It's not the same thing. There's a lot of people named Peter, Miles, even Watanabe is a name somewhere in like Eastern cultures. Uatu is super specific. It's hyper specific. It's so weird to me. It's one of the weirdest things in this comics I did not really agree with, and I kind of wish it kind of just like you knew what he's doing. What's the point of that? But after defeating the Sinister Six, he takes the living brain and tried to repurpose it to be like his assistant. Excuse me. But then, upon realizing while working, because at this time, is understood that Peter's been helping with Spider-Man with his inventions and stuff like that, almost like what he kind of excuse he made in the Spider-Man game. He's building like gadgets for Spider-Man to help his war on crime. But he also been working on this technology to help people like walk again and other stuff, which also helps along with Parker Industries storyline, which, by the way, I want to say this right here, right now, really quick. Unlike most people, I actually like this storyline with him running Parker Industries. Some people would rather have him being like a teacher or working at the Bugle. And I say, Peter is, I mean, maybe like a professor, sure, maybe. I could, probably buy that in some cases. But as smart as Peter is, it makes sense that he would run some kind of tech company. And the benefit of having to be able to go anywhere he so chooses to without having to make up some stupid excuse in order to be gone somewhere without people, crying about where's Parker? It's like he's late again and woo woo. It's like, no, he's running the company. He can dip out anytime he wants to and come back like Batman. And it's like, he can just go when he pleases. And he has a team of people working and it's like all this other stuff. It was a great storyline and a great progression of the character and utilizing a skill set that he should be like something like Tony Stark. Maybe not as smart as him or Reed Richards, but he should be on that, plateau, or at least the lower spectrum of that plateau. He shouldn't be at this. Of course, you don't want, because comic industries like hate the idea of aging their readers. But I think this is like a natural progression. Nobody likes characters regressing. By this, stage of the game, Peter should be running his like tech company or something like that. I liked it, and I really wish they should have kept that going. But Doc Ock is like, making things like this kind of like a mechanism to help people, because he, Aunt May is having trouble walking. She's walking with a cane from like some prior battle or something that she got hurt from, probably. But if he grows furious because he realized that Parker does not have a doctorate. As smart as he is, he thinks like he should have one. But there's funny moments where he's like saying out loud to himself for some reason. I don't know why he just doesn't think it all the time. He does it sometimes, but not all the time. But he says out loud, like, accessing memories. How would you say that out loud? Do you have to forcefully, accessing memories? It's like calling out like a superhero move, like it's an anime. So he accesses, in all Parker's memories and realizes he doesn't have a doctorate. He got like, different, like, a degree here and there, for college and high school. But he doesn't have a doctorate because he spent most of his time, scrambling for like, like money for, it's like, freelance photography and some stuff here and there. But both of his time is, spent towards like being Spider-Man and just having like a life. He never even considered getting like a doctorate. And matter of fact, after his mind was switched back, technically at this point in time, and I'm pretty sure it still holds, correct me if I'm wrong, but Peter technically now has a doctorate. So technically he's Dr. Peter Parker. I think people forget that, because after reading this, it's like, matter of fact, because I remember like, the story when they switched back and everything. I just never read this throughout its completion, but going back in my access in my memories, it's like, holy crap, they never rescinded that ever. They never went back on that. So technically Peter Parker is still a doctor. He's technically a doctor now. So while he's going back to ESU and everything like that, he ends up running into, well, Doc Ock in Peter Parker's body ends up running into an old schoolmate of Doc Ock's called Lamaze, almost like Lamaze class. But Doc Ock calls him Lamaze the Snoz because he got this bulbous nose. And Lamaze considers Doc Ock an old friend of his, but Doc Ock doesn't think highly of him at all. In his mind, obviously, like, poking at him, like, it's like, because Doc Ock in Peter Parker's body just gives off this air of superiority, like, calling people fools, dolts, and just very prideful speak. And people really are turned off by that. And it's like, and people around him, it's like wondering like why Parker's acting so strange. He's carrying himself like an arrogant ass. But Ock ends up meeting this woman named Anna Maria, who is, you know, person who has like dwarfism, and she has like a decent supporting role during the whole Parker Industries adventure, as well as this adventure here is being her first creation of this character. And I like Anna Maria pretty well, and of course after, you know, things come up about like, because once she figures out that Doc Ock, the person, because they end up falling in love, but she come to realize, because she thinking it's Peter Parker that she's falling in love with, not realizing it was actually Doc Ock that she was spending all this time with in Peter Parker's body. And you know, her and Parker will never have like a thing, because Peter Parker doesn't have like any feelings towards her like that. Anna Maria, you know, Doc Ock will still always pine over her. They never really gotten back together, from my recollection. They never, like, because I don't think I've even read anything with Anna Maria, you know, after the whole the fall of Parker Industries. I've never heard of Anna Maria ever since. She's pretty much been written out of the Spider-Man supporting cast list. But she, you know, from what I remember from Parker Industries' story, she hates Doc Ock because she felt like he manipulated the situation, because she thought she was in love with Peter Parker, but she ends up, you know, realizing, oh my God, I've been like hooking up with a known criminal who's done all these atrocities and everything like that, blah, 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 blah. So they never became an item. But here, this is her first introduction. And like, kudos to Dan Slott, you know, creating like a character who you address the whole, you know, the dwarfism situation, but not making a whole spectacle. But like, oh, look at us, people. We're like highlight, because, you know, sometimes people, especially in Hollywood sometimes, but every once in a while comic book creators like to make a big show of what they have. Is like, look at us, people. We have like, look how diverse we are. We got like a person like this in our story, and she has like a, you know, prominent role and blah blah blah. No, they didn't do none of that. It's like, as a character, we acknowledge about the whole situation. She speak on it here and there, but it's not like a whole thing about it. It's handled beautifully. I think, like, as far as like, you know, this, you know, series supporting cast on Superior Spider-Man, Anna Maria has been my favorite. She has been done so perfectly. There's like an interaction with Aunt May that, you know, kind of addressed this whole situation, because like, well, she know this is Peter Parker, and he has like a girlfriend, and she's concerned about, like, you know, children and everything like that. And of course Doc Ock kind of loses it. It's like, how dare you, is like, ooh, and Maria's trying to calm her down. It's like, you know, it's like, look, you know, it's not a big deal. Like, I had these kind of questions all the time, and it's not gonna make a huge thing. The scene, of course, not handling here, but I want to address it while I'm thinking about it. It's handled, I imagine, like it would be in like a realistic kind of scenario at a dinner table, when I imagine people who have this life, who are dating somebody who's, you know, has like, you know, kind of like the height of everyday people, trying to navigate my word choice without, you know, come across, you know, very offensive. But I imagine when they're dating somebody, and they going to meet the family, they have these kind of conversations. Although some might go right, some might go wrong, but they have these kind of conversations. And I imagine this is like, you know, I don't know if Dan Slott knows people or talk to people with dwarfism, but I imagine, like, you know, they tell stories like this, and that's how he probably wrote it in. That's why it seems so realistic to me in a way, even though I don't know anybody with dwarfism personally. uh, but you know, I imagine these kind of like realistic kind of depictions. It's like I imagine it's handled very, you know, seriously, uh, uh, respectfully. Uh, it's just realistic. It's like I applaud that. Really, this is probably one of my favorite scenes. It's not action oriented. Anyway, I'm off track here. She ends up inviting Doc Ock Peter to her place and offers to tutor him, even though Doc Ock's like, I don't need any tutoring, and like I can handle this myself. And of course, she is a field of science, and she used it towards like her cooking, like cooking with science and chemistry, because technically cooking is kind of like chemistry, and made him this very almost like the best food he ever had in his life. And so, because like it's like the quickest way to a man's heart is through his stomach, even to somebody like Doc Ock. And of course, it's like he just like got smitten immediately, and it's like even after he left, he was still thinking about the food and her. It's like, so they started to form like a bond. But eventually, the whole situation with like Massacre breaking out of Ravencroft, going to this diner, kidnapping the woman and her baby for like, just in case for any kind of collateral. Massacre is like this diner, which the corporate owner gets flipping about, because like now every time they think of this like name of this restaurant, they think about this Massacre, and her stock prices are dipping and everything like that. And Massacre shows up to her house, breaks in, and says like, I'll wear your competitor's shirt while I do my thing, and that way, your stock prices will just go up, by the fact that theirs are falling, kind of situation. Of course, she ends up relenting, because she's thinking about, like, A, I don't want to die, and B, this could be lucrative for me. I just don't want it connected to me. Of course, it does, thanks to Superior Spider-Man. He ends up, like I said before, diffusing the bombs in that warehouse to avoid any kind of leverage on Massacre's end. Of course, once he diffused everything, the hostages ends up, one of them ends up giving him a hug. It was kind of like, it's kind of like a new territory for Doc Ock. He never been on this side of things before. He's getting a taste of heroism, but he wanted to do it in his own arrogant way, but doing a fair good job. I put it where it's like Infinite's Iron Man, Doctor Doom's probably like was like the best at when it comes to, it's like Doc Ock, Doom, Harley Quinn, and Loki. In terms of bad guys doing good things, Doom obviously did it better. Even though they all had their little moments, even though Harley Quinn and Loki's probably the ones that maintain their good guy status now, are because of the movies. Doom handled it better because he's a genius, obviously, but he managed to like neutralize a lot of bad guys during the infamous Iron Man run, and just like dominated. Even though most people don't believe his like good guy turn, and like I said, I kind of wish they kind of kept that going, but here Spider-Man got Massacre cornered, and of course he's taking shots at people. Doc Ock stops him, breaks the guy's arms, and picks up a gun. And Peter's screaming in the back of his mind, like, "Don't do it, Doc. He's unarmed. You can just let the police handle it now." And of course, Doc Ock, especially with all these bystanders screaming like, "Do it!" And because like they're just obviously stressful situation. People are hurt. This guy wasn't gonna hesitate to just literally massacre, all of them at a whim. So Doc Ock is just saying to himself, before he's just gonna end up, kind of like with Arkham Asylum. It's like, if we take you in, you're just gonna come right back out and cause more damage. So he kills him right on the spot. And of course, this casts the eye of the Avengers. With at the time, the team being composed of Cap, Iron Man, Black Widow, Wolverine, and Thor. Although Iron Man at the time was in space. I'm pretty sure it was around that time when he's figured out about his he was adopted by his birth sibling, the actual son of Maria and Howard Stark, Arnold Stark. People mostly dropped that entire guy altogether. We haven't heard him in at least 3-4 years. The last time I heard anything about that guy. He was in space when you figured out that kind of situation. Of course, he's he comes back at the tail end of this adventure, and now Carly's working with Watanabe because she's suspecting something's off with Spider-Man. Given her last interaction with Doc Ock, she's starting to be suspicious. And so they end up running an investigation, interrogating a lot of cops that's been on this scene. Of course, after the whole situation massacre, that thin blue wall line situation, they all, choose to stick together and say like, "Oh, I didn't see anything. I didn't see Spider-Man do anything." The guy, must have killed himself or whatever. Evidence probably proves, contrary to what they're saying, the bystanders ain't snitching on Spider-Man, and neither are the cops, which is kind of funny that everybody now is like on board with Spider-Man because it's Doc Ock doing different things from what typically Spider-Man would do. And people, I want to point this out right now because reading through this, I was thinking about things like The Boys are invincible, and when people tell me like, I like when my superheroes like go hardcore and do the dark stuff because they got cynical mindset and probably got no freaking joy in their freaking lives. Not saying it's everybody like that. If you like, The Boys and Invincible, God bless you. But getting sick of these like cynical superheroes that hurts people or kills bad guys, but also hurt people in the process kind of situation. Blah 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 blah. Real life superheroes do damage kind of situation. You got things like the Crime Syndicate or Superior Spider-Man, things like that. You got enough of that in your mainline comic books already. I was like, I don't know why you need more of it. Like, you just want them just like do just gratuitous violence for the sake of it, because that's what it is at this time. So now you got this little, I could not believe when I got, like I said, like people who've been working on the Spider-Man game probably read through a lot of Spider-Man comics, including Superior Spider-Man. And this is probably where they got the Speedball character from. I thought that was like an original game character, but no. Lo and behold, here she is. And I'm like, my God, Speedball. Oh my God, I don't know, like this Jester guy. And so they're going around pulling pranks. They end up pranking J. Jonah Jameson during his like live conference, and everybody's laughing and everything like that. And so Jonah's feeling embarrassed, called Spider-Man to deal with this person. And of course, Doc Ock was like, "Sure, I'll deal with him." Of course, he's like not taking it all too seriously because he likes the idea that somebody pulling like a prank on him. Until once he got these guys cornered, they end up pulling a prank on Doc Ock, and now Doc Ock is furious because they kind of forces his memories, because kind of like childhood trauma ekes back up again, and he thinks about, and Peter's watching this, thinks about all the times he got bullied as a child. So it's like Doc Ock savagely beats these two to near death. And like Wolverine is the one that's kind of like was the deciding factor with the vote, because like, you know, people didn't like the idea of like, you know, Spider-Man killing a guy. And of course Wolverine points out like, how many of us had blood on our hands? I say like he, you know, the guy, you know, besides, the guy was like a cold-blooded serial killer. And it's like, I don't think we should be, you know, shedding a tear for this kind of person. And besides, we all done a lot worse than this. Yeah, because a lot of them are warriors. Even Captain America, I'm pretty sure, had used a gun against Nazis before. Even though we probably haven't seen him actually like take shots, but I'm pretty sure every once in a while he probably had to do something like that. It's World War II, no less. But Wolverine, Black Widow, Thor, all are hardened warriors that took lives, plenty of lives. Probably did not like the idea of having to do that, but they did not hesitate to do so if they had to do it. I wouldn't say had no choice, but it's just like that was the life they lived, and they're not Spider-Man. They, you know, they lived their lives that they lived, and they left the warrior's life kind of situation. But it wasn't to this moment where it's like, okay, we got to bring them in, because these are know nothing punks. You know, you don't need to go too hard on these kind of guys. So they end up bringing Spider-Man in, running tests on him, thinking like he might be a Skrull or under some kind of psychic control or something like that. The scans prove inconclusive. Of course, you know, thankfully Doc Ock didn't have to deal with like Tony Stark or Reed Richards, because they're off doing their own thing for the time being. But you know, he ends up taking their, you know, footage and any kind of scans that they took, and because that's how he ended up figuring out, because like a little anomaly, a blip, because he is a scientist, not them, so they couldn't read certain things that someone like Reed Richards or Tony Stark would easily pick up. We also get the introduction of Cardiac, because Cardiac shows up. He's like another like Spider-Man, I won't say villain, I hesitate to use the word villain because he's more like a vigilante, because he is like a doctor who, you know, wants to help people, but figures like the law or certain bureaucratic red tape interferes with saving lives. So I want to let you guys know that one of my first, probably the first Spider-Man comic I ever read had Cardiac in it. Like, you know, I was struggling trying to find that particular adventure, because it was only that one issue that I seen him in. I read him in when I was a kid, and I don't know the full adventure with the story with Cardiac and how it ended. But that was my first, because I thought this costume was freaking cool looking, especially it was during the 90s. A lot of art around that time was so cool looking. But like, that was my first introduction of Cardiac. And of course, it took me a long time to realize he was like a black guy, but it was like, oh my God, Cardiac. And we need, you know, talk about like characters that need to be highlighted. If you want to, if Sony wanted to make a villain base led, you know, hero story, whatever, they could have gone with Cardiac. Makes more sense than Kraven the Hunter. Because it would make more sense, because yes, actually has some admirable qualities to him, that he chooses the life of a vigilante that borderlines on like bad guyness in order to do what he feels is right. He is running a kind of like a soup kitchen thing. Of course, it used to be Feast, the, you know, homeless shelter. They repurposed it to be like, they called it Heart or something like that. But underneath the surface, he uses it, you know, with a crew of other physicians that also wants to use their skills in order to actually help people without that constant red tape or worrying about getting the money for certain things. They just be able to do their job and help people without all that nonsense. And of course, he's this one particular child who is suffering from an affliction thanks to, ironically, Doc Ock, who's one point in a venture trying to I think it was around the time towards the tail end when he's doing the mind swap with Spider-Man. He's trying to like threaten the ozone layer around the globe, and it affected some people, more specifically this girl. And so Cardiac realizes that one of Doc Ock's old inventions, that does some brain scans or whatever like that, one uses that to help fix the girl. So he breaks into this facility called the Boneyard, where they collect all the supervillain tech that they acquired over like all these like superhero battles. And Cardiac breaks in, and Doc Ock realizes like this whole situation through like the police scanner, fights Cardiac, but he ends up making off with the brain scan. Of course, eventually tracks Cardiac down, realizing what he's intending to use it for, and so he ends up helping the girl. Also at the same time, he had like a fight with, like I said, like with the Avengers, and Spider-Woman's on the team too, apparently. And of course, real Peter, is in the back of the mind trying to manipulate the body, trying to like usurp control as much as he can, try to jot down notes under the surface without Doc Ock noticing, trying to leave messages for the Avengers to pick up on. Of course, he's not doing a very good job, and the Avengers are not picking up on it. Especially someone like Black Widow, you would think she'll be able to pick up something. Only thing she sees on his notepad is like a spider with an arrow pointing to a head, and she's not making heads or tails of it, so she, brushes it off. So Doc Ock, thanks to the brain scanner, realizes Peter Parker is still in the recesses of his mind. He starts wiping at least 90% of Parker's memories, except for key things that he feels like he probably needs, and in order to still function or pretend to be Peter Parker as much as he can. And seemingly Peter is gone. And like I said, Captain Watanabe and Carly is run their own private investigation because they don't know who they can trust, and they definitely don't want to raise any suspicions against this Spider-Man if what Carly proves to be true. All the meanwhile, while Doc Ock Peter is full-on Superior Spider-Man now with the new costume and gear, he is gotten his own spider henchmen, as well as again like offshore accounts using funding to make his essentially an army. And after dealing with Alistair Smythe and a potential breakout, because Smythe was responsible of killing J. Jonah Jameson's wife, and so he has a grudge against Smythe and want to make sure he's dead. And so it was during like a prison break that they try to deal with Alistair Smythe. At that same time, Doc is so good with all these like using these tech robots and everything like that, and taking down all these different criminal organizations, including like at this time the Kingpin has like hand ninjas working for him, and then you got Owlsley and his crew, and all these other like criminal factions throughout New York. Anytime Superior Spider-Man is taking these guys down, any stragglers are getting picked up by Green Goblin Norman Osborn, who is hiding away in like a hideout underneath the city, amassing a goblin army. So Jonah is making sure that, okay, this sentence is carried out. And I don't know why Alice's mom got this kind of weird, mask on, like like he's from Doom game. But he makes these little kind of like the spider bots, but these are like spider slayer bots, and they make him a suit, as well as Scorpion, who was also on the Sinister Six, Vulture, and Boomerang, give them brand new suits and weapons to help break themselves out. And of course, Superior Spider-Man is there at the same time, and he takes down Smythe while trying to keep, like, uses spider bots to form like a protective barrier around like the civilians, but Jonah just won't listen. He just like Jonah's want to do his own thing and try to, take one of the security guards' suits and tries to finish off Smythe himself. But Smythe ends up getting killed by Spider-Man. But ironically, because he's just still holding on that shred of life, he tries to brain swap with Spider-Man. And of course, when he tries to, there's like a metal sheath behind his mask, and Smythe is like, what's going on? And it's like, I got a surprise for you. I'm really Doc Ock, and I already had this idea, and I already brain swapped with Spider-Man. So your legacy is going to be amounts to nothing. And it's like, goes to show like the levels of intellect in the Marvel universe, and how smart each one is. Moon Girl being probably like considered the smartest one in the Marvel universe. Then there's like Reed Richards, Tony Stark, Doctor Doom. I think those being like the top 4 of intelligence. I don't think in this case Smythe is not as smart as Doc Ock, but Doc Ock is definitely not as smart as the other 4 that I mentioned. And of course, like, you got like Black Panther. He's up, like, he's in the top 5 of smartest Marvel characters. And so at this time, Ben Urich's son, or not son, nephew, turns out to be the new Hobgoblin, who's pretty much kind of like copying the real Hobgoblin, who is Masondale, who kind of looks like who and is human, like, normal, out of costume self. Kind of reminds me of what Slade Wilson looks like, out of costume. Kind of looks like Slade Wilson a little bit in the face, with the beard and everything, like gray hair. But he's in Masondale's pocket because I guess Masondale obviously doesn't like the idea of somebody copying him. So he ends up working for him. But then Superior Spider-Man outed him, goes on the news, takes over like the TVs and radios and everything like that. Outs, once he figures things out, he outs Urich, and now he got him cornered and goes after him once he realizes, because he works at the Daily Bugle. And so once he takes him down, he gets rescued by one of Green Goblin's henchwomen. And at the same time, Yuri Watanabe and Carly is out of town, trying to follow the money, realizing the money's being funded through a guy who helps fund a lot of bad guys over the years. And of course, I was curious on, like, because in the game I mentioned many times, Watanabe, I figured, like, in one of the side stories, not side stories, but DLC characters stories, she quits the force, and you think like, oh, she's doing her Punisher thing because she don't feel like the police are not doing what they need to do because the criminals are just getting away and walking over the law. I think like, oh, she's just gonna end up turning into like another Punisher or something like that. Here, I imagine this is where her natural progression would be. She's being a vigilante, yes, but she's known as like the Wraith, but she's using some kind of fear gas that I guess she took from Mysterio. And my first thought was like, she's Scarecrow now? But no, he took some kind of technology, made her own costume, and decided to do like a Daredevil thing and actually like take on criminals that's escaping the law. But in here, she's still like a police force. Now we're on like a different like arc of the story where Spider-Man 2099 is traveling back into the past because time is going haywire in his present day of the future. And of course, this is like some time after where 616 Peter Parker meets Miguel O'Hara 2099. Of course, I didn't cover that here. When I figure out that arc of the story, I will probably put on a list of Spider-Man comics I'll cover in the future. But Tyler Stone, if you watch my spoiler review on Spider-Man 2099, which is also up on my channel, Tyler Stone, spoiler alert here, is Miguel O'Hara's father. Of course, Tyler Stone doesn't know that he knows, but Tyler Stone also don't know that Miguel is Spider-Man. So he ends up hiring Spider-Man because time's in flux, he has to solve it, otherwise everything gets erased. Now of course Miguel O'Hara doesn't mind Tyler Stone, he hates Tyler Stone, he doesn't mind him getting erased, but if wherever's erased him happens in the past, and therefore if that is the case, he and his brother will cease to exist as well. So he goes back in time to find the anomaly. At this time he ends up bumping into Tyler Stone's father, Miguel's grandfather, who's also just as much of an asshole as Tyler is. You can see where he gets it from, probably learned it from nature nurture situation. And Tyler Stone, who is working under or associated with Liz Allen, who married and birthed Harry Osborn's son, Normie. Not married Normie, but like she married Harry Osborn, had a son by him, Normie, who might have some crazy tendencies too. And I always like look at that boy sideways every time. Except for like Marvel C2 or MC2, when I did like a spoiler review on Spider-Girl, which you can also check out on my YouTube channel as well, where Normie's grown up, has like a girlfriend of her own, and try to get out of the shadow of his grandfather and live like a good life kind of situation. So anyway, they're pretty much planning on taking over Horizon, and this is like this is where the not the start, but seeding Alchemax, which was like alchemical something or other, which turns into Alchemax altogether. And this will be the start of what it will be in the future. Alchemax is one of the biggest mega corporations of the future that will eventually have like the public eye, the privatized police force and everything like that. So uh, everything that's been invented in Horizon Labs will in turn be part of Alchemax. Of course, people are trying to fight it, but Doc Ock is like, oh no, I can't have my inventions being like, taken from me. So while he's trying to stop that, of course he only cares about his stuff. He doesn't really care all that much about everybody else. But he bumps into Spider-Man 2099. And so they figure out the time anomaly is present day Stone ends up sabotaging the Horizon Labs in order to be able to have an excuse to do a corporate takeover, essentially. And of course, one of the people utilizing this, very proto time machine that they have here, they just have a freaking time machine, but they haven't gotten the kinks to work out yet. So you wonder how, Spider-Man 29 traveled back into the past. And if you read my story through my spoiler review summarizing 2099 adventure, there's a little reality warping mechanism in a particular arc where, because time travel is forbidden in Miguel's timeline, or Miguel's present day. But Tyler Stone, of course, tried to usurp that by making, it's a reality bending, blah, 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 whatever mechanism. But it's a time machine. There's no way around that. But one of the people in Horizon Labs used it to try to figure out how this could go wrong. They come to realize Tyler Stone's father and was like sabotaging them, which bust him later on. But things are going too haywire, and so the guy running Horizon Labs is and everybody else is taking orders from Doc Ock Peter, and it's like, okay, you do this, take these resources, we'll build something, we'll cobble something together in order to put a stop to this. But the thing is, they need a particular equation or formula to key in, although only Peter knows what to type in, because this is where he came in. But because Doc Ock purged a good chunk of Peter's memories, he also took away that answer, so he cannot access it. He's trying, but none of it is working. And of course, everybody's abandoning the facility while Doc Ock staying behind and try to, okay, I'll just figure this out. I figure it out on the fly. And so key everything in, it doesn't work, but it's just localized to that particular building. So he ends up getting blipped away. And as far as everybody thinking, like, oh, Spider-Man's dead, or at least he went somewhere in the past or future or whatever. And Tyler Stone, now that the time flux is neutralized, has the time machine destroyed, completely stranding Miguel O'Hara in the past, 2013. Of course, he ends up helping out with modern day Peter Parker during the whole situation during the Parker Industries story adventure, that kind of thing. During this time, he eventually gets back into the future. Eventually, I want to cover that too, because he gets a cool little white variation of his suit. It was really dope. Of course, I still like the, blue blackish Day of the Dead costume he always has, but the white variation is kind of dope too. But here, while he's stranded, he's taking on this persona of Michael O'Hara, O'Mara, no, yeah, Michael O'Mara, and uh, and taking on like an assistant role for his own grandfather. In the meantime, trying to prevent Alchemax from really kind of like potentially taking over. And I keep forgetting the Horizon guy's name. It really doesn't matter. I don't even think he ever comes back up again. So they end up using the machine, and thanks to Mayor Jameson, he's because he was friends with his wife, not pressing charges against him, but he just cannot be allowed to rebuild or reforge or whatever in New York again. So he eventually takes whoever want to come with him and whatever stuff he has left, takes a boat and casts off, never be seen again. Probably never seen again. He probably pops up somewhere recently. I just never read it. But anyway, but before he does all that, he uses, whatever tech he has to recalibrate everything to bring Superior Spider-Man back into their present day. And of course, his clothes are torn and messed up. And they ask him, like, what's going on? Like, I can't remember. We'll know what happened in the epilogue. And of course, because this is while he was gone, because he was only gone for like 8 hours or something like that. But during that period, this is when Superior Spider-Man was a part of the Spider-Verse storyline. We'll cover that in the next my next review, because this was been building up with me covering, which, by the way, please check out all my Spider-Man coverage that I've been doing leading up to Spider-Verse. I wanted to get this all out before Across the Spider-Verse comes out in June, which they recently posted a new trailer for in the past few days. So yeah, check out my coverage of Superior Spider-Man once I wrap this up, but also Spider-Man, where 616 Peter Parker meets Miles Morales, the Miles Morales storyline of his origins, Ultimate Peter Parker, Spider-Man 1602, the main 616 Spider-Man story when he meets Morlun for the first time. Forgot what that's called, but it's up on the channel as well. Spider-Man based off the Gameverse Spider-Man based off the 2018 game. Spider-Gwen, Spider-Girl from the MC2, Spider-Man Noir, Spider-Man 2099. Might be forgetting one, but yeah, just all that stuff. Check out all that stuff I've been covering so far. Oh, Spider-Man manga, anime Spider-Man. Check all that stuff out. That I was, doing that leading up to Spider-Verse. Oh, and Spider-Ham, of course, Spider-Ham. I don't care for that. Probably should have gone with like the 5-issue run, where it's like definitely after the whole Spider-Verse adventure had already happened, but I think it was like better handled than the one I went through, where it's kind of like just comic strips, like old school newspaper stuff. But anyway, he came back. He doesn't remember what happened, but this during the events of like the Spider-Verse stuff. The guy tells him, like, okay, I brought you back, we're even now, kind of situation. I just don't want anything to do with you or Peter Parker. And of course, this is when Doc Ock Peter comes to the conclusion of running his own company and decided to call it Parker Industries. Getting the loan from May, Anna Maria, and Jonah's father to help pull up the collateral to afford, the startup. And he goes to the board of directors of the ESU and present his thesis. Of course, Lamaz, points out, like, you stole this from Doc Ock, my former colleague and my good friend. And of course, Doc Ock is like, like, Stoll, how dare you? And of course, like, he's furious that he's trying to uh throw a monkey wrench in his entire program. Of course, he uses like this hard light hologram body using like a VR system, like an old girlfriend of Doc Ock, some woman who's like a Spider-Man villain, I guess, but had a thing for Doc Ock. I'm pretty sure you guys know about her, but she doesn't seem familiar to me. Apparently, she had a thing with Doc Ock, but it eventually just went nowhere, and he found somebody new, so he kind of like let her, off easy and everything like that. But use that same technology to present him like his old self. Tells Lamaze like, "Oh, the news of my demise was greatly exaggerated, but I'm going off in hiding and want to live like a normal life. You'll never see me again, but Peter Parker was my protege. You can trust all stuff that he's presenting. We work together, so as much as his as it was mine. So, please don't give him a hard time. Because his other alternative was just to kill Lamaze right off the bat. So now he got like this whole startup thing going. This is where we get like Agent Venom. This time when Flash Thompson has the Agent Venom thing going on, adventure, and I think Eddie Brock was anti-Venom at this time. Maybe it's been a long time. So he gets word from his spider henchman that Venom is in town, and he's fighting like a group of bad guys. I think it was like one of the Rose or something like that. I forgot which one of those little offbeat Prime Master, I think it was. Of course, Flash thinking of his old buddy Spider-Man because he's a Spider-Man fanboy. But of course, just like with Black Cat, during one point where Black Cat was robbing a place, Doc Ock just comes in and just, because remembering Black Cat during his Doc Ock days, just like with Owlsley, it's like, I have no love lost for these people because they stole from me or did me wrong in some way. So we come in, just punches the heck out of Black Cat, knocks a tooth out. She is furious, and she gets webbed up for the cops and everything like that. And he calls Anna Maria back, thinking like, because he's like, what the hell is going on? Because nobody's realizing, like everything is off with him. I'm pretty sure that gets cleared up during the Parker Industries storyline at some point. While fighting against Superior Spider-Man, the suit gets weakened, and he tries to go to his old buddy Peter, trying to hopefully he can help him out while he's trying to recover, because he lost his legs during his time in the army. With the Venom suit, he helping him be able to walk. He ends up separating using the same technology to help make Parker walk again. He uses that same thing not only to help Flash Thompson begin to walk again, although he has like prosthetic legs. So that kind of didn't really make sense to me. But I think, no, sorry, I might have misspoke. He must have put those prosthetic legs on him. Don't know why that's never been a thing with Flash, but whatever. But he separated the Venom costume. It breaks out, gets on Doc Ock. Now he's Superior Venom. So he wreaking all kinds of havoc and like, stopping everybody, even like people who just texting and driving. Even though you shouldn't do that, don't text and drive. He's just like attacking just anything he could deems like against the law, no matter how small it is. So the Avengers comes in, tries to put a stop to Spider-Man's supposed rampage, but this time Iron Man's back in town, and of course Iron Man's about to be on scene, but Cap tells him, no, you gotta go somewhere else. So he goes to Parker Industries, where he's meeting Cardiac, because he got injured during like the Venom breakout, and realizing Flash Thompson, has been like Agent Venom this whole time. He comes with the idea of like, tricking the Venom suit into thinking like, oh, this is just Tony Stark without his suit. And it's like, it's not a very good idea if you try to come at me without your suit on, Iron Man. And it's like, it's like a subterfuge, because you've been bonded long enough, just like with like Eddie Brock with Peter Parker, because the Venom suit has been bonded to Peter for so long, it doesn't raise his spider sense. So, because he thinks it is not a threat. So that happens when Eddie Brock tries to sneak up behind using the Iron Man suit to help him like get around. Even though he has prosthetic legs, but because he's been bonded for so long, just like with Eddie Brock, been bonded for so long to the Venom suit. Without it, then he's gonna be sick and die, because the symbiosis is so complete at this point. So he'll die by the end of the day. So thanks to the Iron Man suit giving him decent enough life support to get him to the battlefield, so because he formed like a good connection with the Venom suit, they will automatically go back to him. You just need to be in the vicinity. So he sneaks up behind Anti-Venom and takes off the suit, and the Venom automatically goes right back. And Doc Ock, realizing, okay, I need to come up with a good excuse, because like they got me dead to rights at this point. Oh, thank you, my friends. The Venom suit, it must have been some residual stuff during my time when I had the Venom long time ago that might have just been, hidden away, and it must have been slowly but surely warping my mind, and that's probably why I've been acting so differently lately, and blah blah blah. And they all was like, and then like as soon as they are talking private, was like, you bought that load of bull? Like, not one bit. And thanks to Tony not being here, re-looking at the scans, realizing some of the stuff has been taken, now it's like, okay, the jig is starting to get up. And Peter, whose residual mind is still there, but just tucked away because he wasn't strong enough to overpower Doc Ock's brain. So he is like, back. And now he's definitely going to slowly but surely try to usurp control again. And Carly, now that she figured out that Doc Ock is in Peter Parker's mind, got proof written in his book, she gets kidnapped by Green Goblin's forces and turned in, gets sprayed with a goblin formula. Now she's become one of the Goblin henchmen. Norman now is after like a fight with the Hobgoblin and everything like that, and beating him, even though it's not actually Mixendale, using like a pawn as in his stead. And he, in the meantime, was in Paris this whole time. So now that Goblin has his mask, this superior army decided to like do this whole complete takeover in New York and attacking and pretty much like golding Doc Ock into meeting him, realizing like, okay, I know who you really are, Otto, so you be working for me under my leadership. And of course Doc Ock's not going to hear that mess. Of course he ain't really there, he's using that holographic form. But Norman Osborn, a person who's definitely smarter than Doc Ock, who's like smarter than Smythe, been sabotaging his spider bots in order to have them be manipulated in a way to anybody with a goblin mask is pretty much blinded by blinded in the eyes of Doc Ock. And at this point in time, like, people are like starting to turn against Spider-Man again. And Mayor Jameson's not going is been trying to plot against him because after the whole Smythe situation where he's trying to, during the breakout, trying to convince Superior Spider-Man to pretty much in secret, will you kill him for me? Kill Smythe. He recorded that and now blackmailing him in order to get his little spider island and everything like that. And everything he wants, he gets the full backing of the mayor. Otherwise, he has this leak out. So now he has Liz Allen repurpose all the Spider Slayer technology in these kind of war machines that's supposedly helping the police force and everything like that, but he's keeping his back pocket. So now the Goblin forces are starting to cause chaos in the city. The Avengers are trying to do what they can. Miguel O'Hara's trying to do whatever he can. And Doc Ock's getting overwhelmed at this point. And he's telling everybody that's associated with Peter Parker to, pack up high. They're coming after, Osborn's coming after key people in my life. Just do what I say. And of course, thankfully, because they've been through this, because Mary Jane's been through this mess long enough to where she has extra pair of web shooters in her closet in order to be able to defend herself, because she's not not gonna try to be a damsel in distress anymore. She's gonna be able to not only escape but defend herself. She also set up a kind of it's kind of like a fire escape plan or fire drill kind of situation where she's telling her Aunt Anna and getting Aunt May, key certain people, because even J. Jonah Jameson, even though he'll be fine because he got security, but getting Aunt Anna and somebody else to just like we practice Aunt Anna, get them and get on a plane and get out of town. And she already got because as the Goblin force is trying to break into Aunt May's place, nobody's there, and they already beat them to it and already hauled off and out of out on the outskirts of town. And at this point in time, Goblin is just taking key locations that mean anything to Doc Ock, like his old childhood home, Spider Island, even the warehouse where he saved those people from the massacre guy. He blows it all up. It's like Doc Ock is oh my god, I don't know what to do, because this guy is 2 steps ahead of me. He figured everything out, all the stuff that I would have planned for. He got me. He checkmated me. I don't know what to do. And he's got Anna Maria, and I'm really out of sorts because I cannot outthink this guy. Even when he's trying to stop because he even take over the Spider Slayers that's been sent out, because if Jameson should have been sent them out, he's just ready to really stick it to Spider-Man, and to the point where he's putting people in danger just for an old vendetta, as mentioned by one of his assistants. So and you wonder how he managed to take over the Spider Slayers, because he manipulated Liz Allen in order to gain control of those Spider Slayers that she helped create. And so at the breaking point, realizing that because Peter Parker is now talking with him, he ends up saying the little girl that he helped get fixed thanks to his head machine, and he come to realize, going back to Parker Industries, goes to his lab after he cures Carly of his of the Goblin formula, because she's still in there. He gets the brain machine and talks with Peter inside his mind and start erasing everything that's Doc Ock related from his mind, which means that even Anna Maria and then himself. Of course, like I said earlier in the video, that he copied his brain and sent it to the living brain machine, robot machine that he'd been using as an assistant to eventually get a new body. But like I said, we'll get to that in the future. So only thing that's left in the body is Peter Parker. And this is how we get Peter Parker back. And so Peter gets a costume, his old classic costume, out of the closet, which weirdly Doc Ock never destroyed it. And then saves everybody. And of course, there's a lot of people mad at him right now, and he's going to be, as he mentioned, he's going to be doing a lot of apologizing. He tells to Carly and let her know, like, hey, it's me, I'm back. And of course, she's so glad that he's back. And he goes, helps 2099 deal with the Spider Slayers. So of course, the Spider Slayers, of course, like, 2099 is about to choke out Spider-Man, thinking like, you left me by myself to deal with these things. And of course, he's telling him, no, it's me. My brain got switched with Doc Ock, and it wasn't me the whole time. And Miguel's like, yeah, that checks out. So he goes, starts dealing with like helping civilians and helping the Avengers, dealing with as much as they can to retake control of the city, stopping the Spider Slayers from causing mayhem, as well as the Goblin forces, and even like dealing with like the Hobgoblin. And then finally, last but not least, saving Anna Maria from Green Goblin. And of course, Green Goblin still thinking as Otto is trying to taunt him. Excuse me. And I like this moment. It's my second favorite moment of the story, where it's like, he's trying to talking about like, you got nothing left. And it's like, except the dignity knowing that I never carried a man purse. And Green Goblin was looking like, it's you, like the one and only. And it's like the fact that they know it's Peter, or well, of course, no one knows it's Peter, because like there's very few villains that actually know Peter Parker Spider-Man. And it's like, because only Spider-Man will make corny jokes. And so they duke it out and come to realize, Norman, after being unmasked, did like a face transplant, or like repurpose. I forgot what the word was. He changed his face because one of Liz Allen's assistant was this guy. It was Norman Osborn. That's how he, was able to just infiltrate everywhere, he needs to be, and, always be one step ahead of everybody. And so he saves the day, but, Green Goblin gets away. And, it's Peter Parker. Now he has a company, but he's on this apology tour for everybody because the whole situation while Doc Ock had his body. And like, people just been like, just a little bit irritated with Peter for a while. But now I want to cover at least the epilogue of the couple of issues where Doc Ock was displaced out of time, or displaced out of time and sent to the future. And while in the future, he's gathering material, and while fighting off the public eye, even Venture, and stealing material in order to build a machine to hopefully take him back to his present day. But it ends up taking him to an alternate dimension where he come across a few dead alternate Spider-Men, and with a particular puncture marks on their chest. And one universe where Peter Parker actually became a member of the Fantastic Four, known in this universe probably the Fantastic Five, and the Fantastic Four members are dead, and along with that universe is Peter Parker. Then he ends up going to another universe where it almost looked like a Spider-Man UK thing, but not costume. He's dead. And then another universe where the Civil War was still carrying on. I'm pretty sure that is like a what if storyline. But that universe, Peter Parker is dead. And now he's on this kind of investigation. Okay, there's a lot of dead Peter Parkers going around lately, and with the same puncher marks, because this ain't no isolated incident in different universes where they die in different ways. They're having the same marks with the same residual energy distortion. So he ends up going to another universe, Spider-Man India. That's another one I wanted to mention. Like thing. Even though the video's almost over at this point. This other universe, Spider-Man India, which is another Spider-Man universe I covered on my channel. Check that out as well. Where he meets Peter Parker. I'm butchering that a bit. And saving him from one of the inheritors. And they, jump into a different universe, and he meets Spider Assassin, or Assassin Spider-Man, where the death of Gwen Stacy affected him so much where he decided to the great power, great responsibility really didn't stick with him all that much, and he decided he lost too much, so he trains with Wolverine, become like a more of like a like Wolverine in a way, was kind of gruff and more aggressive. He even got like web shooters, but it also is a makeshift gun where he's kind of fires bullets, kind of like a surprise attack, and saves him from one of the inheritors and jump into like a Nexus universe, or at least to the future of 2099, I should say, and where he gathered other different Spider people to try to jump on this inheritor, thinking it's just him. So we got Spider-Man India, Six-Armed Spider-Man, Spider-Man Noir, Superior Spider-Man, Assassin Spider-Man, Spider-Girl, and not to be confused with Peter Parker's potential daughter, but what is his name? Like daughter of Clint Barton, and Spider Monkey. And they seemingly got him on the ropes, but turns out he easily breaks free, and he is not wanting, but is assisted by two more inheritors, because he has like a family, and he's just kind of like the runt of the group. And they already had like a tough time just dealing with one of them, just like with Peter had a tough time just dealing with one of them. And two more show up. They decide to make an escape. And Peter Otto talks with Assassin Spider-Man and Ms. Barton into saying like, hey, the other people ain't like the rest of us, ain't like the three of us, because we actually seen the worst of life and know what needs to be done. I don't need to count on you in case they get in the way. You'll be able to do what needs to be done, kind of situation. Meaning that if they get in the way, you wouldn't hesitate to kill them in order to continue our survival and other of us survival in the future against these inheritors. So, but I just want to get to that epilogue. But this, by and large, is the wrapping of Superior Spider-Man, and it's good. I still wouldn't have changed my mind about not reading this back in the day, because I still did not like the whole brain swapping thing and killing off Peter Parker, even though we all knew it wasn't going to last. But at the time I was vehemently like against it. So next comic book I'll be reviewing is the Spider-Man event Spider-Verse. So that'll probably be a couple of weeks, depending on how much time I get to reading through all that. But look for that in the near future. But let me know what you think of Superior Spider-Man in the comments below. Leave a like, follow me in the links in the description below. And like, once again, we'll be, reaching that 400 subscriber milestone. Once we do, like, if you share this with your friends, and if you haven't already, definitely subscribe to my channel. Once we get to the 400 subscriber milestone, I will be doing a Hot Ones challenge video where I'll be answering all your questions via YouTube, Twitch, Twitter. I'll be answering all your questions while trying out all the different hot sauces seen from the show live on camera in celebration. So let's try to get those numbers up, people. That'd be greatly appreciated. Just to not only celebrate the channel, but celebrate you guys for being on this journey with me for this long. But anyway, I will see you guys in a few minutes as I cover 2 movies for my movie spoiler review for this week. So see you all then. Peace.